Welcome to This Academic Life.
This episode is sponsored by the School of Engineering at Rensselaer Polytech Institute. Did you know that George Low, an engineer from RPI and also a past president of RPI, led the Apollo project that put man on the moon? It's fitting that 50 years later, the mission commander of the Artemis moon mission is another RPI engineer and astronaut, G. Reed Wiseman.
Hi, my name is Lucy John, a professor of mechanical engineering.
Hi, I'm Hania Newell. I'm also a professor of mechanical engineering.
Hi, I'm Kim Michelle Lewis, a professor of physics and associate dean for research. Today, we are streaming live from Howard University Research Month in the Interdisciplinary Research Building at 2201 Georgia Avenue Northwest in Washington, D.C. Research Month is sponsored by Howard University Office of Research and is designed to showcase faculty and student research at Howard University. This event grew in popularity beginning as Research Day in 2013, to Research Week in 2015, and to Research Month in 2022. Today was quite a busy day for the Research Month in the building. The building was buzzing with students and faculty presenting both oral and poster presentations. Also, there were presentations from the College of Arts and Sciences, Honors Program, faculty fellows, Dow scholars, undergraduate researchers, and Brookhaven National Lab. Presentations will continue through the end of the month and will conclude on Tuesday, April 30th, 2014. You can find the schedule of events for the 2024 Howard University Research Month at researchmonth.howard.edu. This evening, we are delighted to have in our presence Dr. Sonya T. Smith, Professor of Mechanical Engineering. Dr. Smith obtained her PhD in Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering from the University of Virginia and was the first African American to do so. She joined Howard University faculty and is the first female professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. Dr. Smith has established an interdisciplinary theoretical computational research laboratory entitled Applied Fluids Thermal Research Laboratory. Her expertise is in developing customized simulations for a variety of engineering applications. Current projects include thermal management of electronic packaging in fixed wing, UAV, and space vehicles, as well as modeling and simulations of biomechanical systems. Dr. Smith is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, a fellow of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and an associate fellow of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. Currently, Dr. Smith is the interim director of the Research Institute of Tactical Autonomy, also known as Rita UARC. The Rita UARC Award is a historic $90 million contract which marks Howard University as the first ever HBCU to serve as a university-affiliated research center. Sonya, welcome to This Academic Life podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So before we take a deep dive into our conversation, I must ask the following question. How does it feel to be a part of the historic Rita UARC at Howard University?
Well, thank you for that question. I was so happy when the announcement was made last year, and to have this opportunity to help shepherd the mission of the UARC and help form it and see it to fruition is just an honor. So I'm very honored to have this position.
Yep, and we're honored to be under your leadership with the UARC. So today we will discuss the diversity in STEM research and education, and the training and challenges of the next generation of women scientists and engineers. So I would like to begin the conversation this evening by first defining diversity. So I found an article that outlined what is diversity, and it stated that it's an existence of a variety within a group. And this variety can come from differences in gender, race, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, disability status, or other factors. The makeup of this Academic Life podcast is actually a perfect example of diversity. With me being in physics, from New Orleans, we have Lucy, and we have Panya, who will tell you a little bit about themselves later. Now, with that in mind, one often asks the question, why is diversity needed? And then we can argue based on a statement from the 2023 National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics that reported that a diverse workforce provides the potential for innovation by leveraging different backgrounds, experiences, and different points of view. The report goes on to say that innovation and creativity, along with technical skills, relying on expertise in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, contributes to a strong, robust STEM workforce. So yet, despite the positive implications of the statements made, women and other racial and ethnic minorities continue to be underrepresented. So I want to begin the discussion. I would like to have Dr. Smith tell you a little bit about the general statistics when it comes to participation of women in the field of engineering.
Well, thank you for that. I would like to present a wonderful story, but so I'll start with an example in my field, in the field of Lucy and Panya, mechanical engineering. So on the bachelor's level, mechanical engineering produces the largest number of degrees, but we have one of the smallest percentages of women, 15%. And that percentage persists throughout the master's and PhD degrees. So we're typically, again, at the lower end. We're like third lowest in each of those categories. So there's a huge opportunity for improvement there, with particularly mechanical engineering is one of the largest disciplines. We produce the largest number of degrees, but yet women are still underrepresented in 2024. And that persists in electrical and the other engineering disciplines. There's some that are doing better than mechanical, but there's room for improvement. I think what we're going to talk about this evening are some strategies to address that.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, Sonia, the numbers are really low, but the question is that there have been numerous initiatives and programs to increase these numbers across the various engineering programs as well as the STEM in general, and yet we don't see much improvement. I personally think that most of these efforts, they are basically for checking the box, and it's not tailored for the culture or for the groups that we are dealing with. And maybe also still there is a lack of awareness, which also contributes to these numbers staying low. And I personally think that there should be a culture shift, which needs contributions from not only women, but also male colleagues and whoever cares about the academy.
I agree with Panya, and I constantly reflect back when I was an undergrad. The percentage in my class of women was about 20% at the time. And looking at the classes that I'm teaching, the number really has not increased very much. If I reflect and think about, culture, how welcoming things have changed, for women as a participant, I think that had significantly changed. At least we can now openly talk about these issues or lack of diversities. Back then, if I remember correctly, that was not even a thing. You just carry out your daily life, you become part of that culture. So I think there have been improvements. I am not sure whether we're doing it too slow, we're not doing it right, or simply we need more time. The time has not come yet.
I see. So in general, I feel that there are challenges that keep the participation low. And so I kind of want us to talk about what could be some of the challenges that keep women from going into STEM fields, whether it's science or engineering or technology, and what can we do to increase that diversity into these fields?
Well, I'd like to start out with that. I think there was very good points about diversity, and I think that as a discipline, engineering STEM, we're doing diversity fairly well in the sense that we can diversify recruiting. I think that what we don't do well is inclusion, right? So that's the inclusion piece that keeps that retains your faculty, that retains the diversity in your field. And so I think part of the solution is to put a little bit more energy into the inclusion piece and in making sure that you have a climate and culture that Panya mentioned earlier that is conducive to all people thriving.
Yeah, I also would like to echo that both diversity and inclusion are essential. For instance, I was today we were celebrating 30th birthday of the Scientific Computing and Imaging Institute. And one of the speakers said that one thing that it made this institute very important institute around the world was the diversity of the thoughts, the diversity of the participations in different type of research field. And he mentioned a very, very good example, and he said that biodiversity is important for the ecosystem. And I thought that, well, that's exactly what we need in the academy. The diversity, it makes it beautiful. And also the environment, I think that I personally, in my lab, I can start making sure that the diversity and inclusion both being honored, and then the culture would change and it would grow, and eventually, I guess, everywhere around the world will see that not only we have a diverse group, but also everybody is being welcomed to those programs.
I think the key to success, or eventually reaching that success of that ideal diversified groups in the engineering field, is to have everybody to buy in. I think right now there are still people who simply don't believe in it, right? So, I mean, no matter what you say, what you do, they're simply not believing in it. And then we also have a lot of supporters. And those group of supporters, they're going to help us. And then they can make that bigger and bigger over time. So I think, yes, participation and also constantly hosting or making that friendly environment, inclusive environment is really important. And everybody has to participate to make that happen. It doesn't, one person is better than 0%, and 10 people is better than 1 person. So I think it's important for us to make that happen, every one of us.
I agree. Just to follow with that, I think one strategy is admitting cohorts of people or people of color. I remember that being very important to me when I went to the University of Michigan. So it was a cohort of students actually from HBCUs, and that was inclusion for me because then I automatically had an inherent group of people that I studied with for quantum mechanics or statistical mechanics. So, and I think that strategy worked, and I think that's why the applied physics program at Michigan actually produces a lot of, people of color from their PhD programs because they understood the idea of bringing people in together as a cohort to make it through those very tough years for everybody. Graduate school is hard for everyone, right? So I think that is an example of a strategy of inclusiveness for graduate schools. One thing I wanted to talk about was how do we train the next generation of women scientists and engineers? In particular, what can we do to prepare them better? And one thing when I had my research group, most of the women that graduated from my research group were women. And I would, maybe 1 week out from their defense, I would say, okay, what's the plan? Are you going to become a professor? Are you going to, get a job in industry? And they all said they're going to go into industry. And I was disappointed. I was like, what? Like, all of this hard work and you're going to go into industry. Not saying that industry is bad, but, when you're a professor, you're thinking you're training someone who's going to, take over from you, right? And so I asked them, why don't you consider the academy? And they all said, you work too hard. And they didn't like to see this constant grind, like on the tenure track, building a lab, writing proposals, getting grants, going to conference. They just felt like it just never stopped, right? So I think if I had an opportunity, which I will do with my next graduate student, is expose them to a work-life balance, right? And so that's going to have to start with me. So I want to know from you, what would you do to help prepare the next generation of women in engineering and science?
Well, I think that's a good example. I experienced that as well. Most of my students, they want to go into industry because they say, well, we don't see that your life is one that we want to model in the way that you work. So we have to change the perception. But I think what we also have to do is we have to give our students, the young women that are coming behind us, the right tools, the right armor to work with. We need to let them understand microaggressions, macroaggressions. We need to have them understand unconscious bias. We need to have them understand what their rights are as far as recourse and how to make sure that they understand that they need to know what the rules are at their university. They need to read their faculty handbook, their employee handbook, those types. You're right, Lucy, it's not going to change overnight. There's still a lot of headwinds that young people of color, women coming into academia, even into graduate school. And so we have to make sure that they have the right tools and the right armor to withstand those headwinds. And I think that's the best tools that we can give them, so that once they thrive and survive, then they can help make it better for the next group, as we're doing today.
I can't agree with you more, Sonya. This is something that we, as role models for future generations of engineers and scientists, continue to make a better place for our future generations. And of course, it doesn't happen overnight. I think one thing I would like to mention about work-life balance, we always like to draw that boundary. But I think to understand that work and life are very well integrated as one since the beginning. Drawing that boundary is sometimes can make you very frustrated. But if you think that, how do I, rather than think about putting them on a scale and try to put them, on the equal side, making them to compete, is probably the wrong concept. So I've been reading a lot of literature recently and talking about work-life integration rather than simply putting them on a balance. Integration, you want to embrace both. You can, right? We've all gone through a lot of these experiences to better integrate work and life as a whole. And I think we can do that. Sometimes we can't reach a optimal position, but that's where we're trying, how to integrate both. We can have both. don't ever tell, other people, don't let other people tell you that you can't have both. Yes, you can, right? So I think we can tell our future generations that we can do better. And also, for, I think, younger generations, they sometimes might have this ideal. Once I go to work, everything will be great. Everything will be perfect because, people have been working on these for years and decades, generations, to make the workforce, the workplace a perfect environment. But you have to be mentally ready, at least. It'll never be perfect. And you will run into problems and situations that you probably haven't run into before. And that's okay. We work at it. We work at it every single day. And you're going to be part of us and fighting and keep on making this, the entire much better for engineers and scientists.
Oh, Lucy, I love that. I love that how you said that work-life integration. Well, my lab is integrated multiphysics lab, so you can see the connections. I love the integrations, and I 100% agree with what you said. I think that also we have the responsibility to create networking opportunities for the next generations or the upcoming generations to expose them with various opportunities and options that they exist. Lucy and I, we are part of the computational associations that it's both within the US and also international. And we started with maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 women participating in the very male-dominated communities. And the last time that we were having these networking opportunities, there were more than 100 people participating. I don't know, 6, 7 years, or maybe even more than that. But we've been persistent, and then we've been trying to keep going and moving, even they were only handful people they were interested. So I really think that those networking opportunities are a good place for giving hopes and then also changing the culture that I brought up early on.
And I just want to add, I think one thing that we all should do, if you believe in this philosophy, is I've always told my students that you have to find mentors. And that a misconcept is that your mentor has to look like you. Because I'm a woman of color, my mentor also has to be a woman of color. And while that's a priority, right? I look up to Dr. Smith as a mentor. There could be someone who's not a person of color or a woman that has my best interests at heart, that I don't want to miss that opportunity for that person to mentor me. So I think that's something that we could use to help better prepare the next generation, is to tell them that if that person is sincere, you trust them, they're honest, they want to see you succeed, then it's okay that they're your mentor. Don't shy away from that. Otherwise, we could miss out on a great opportunity. So the last question I want to ask is related to challenges, right? So we've trained them, they understand the science, they can work in a lab, they can publish, they can do public speaking, they have the soft skills, they're all set, right? We gave them mentors, we've talked about, help them with the work-life integration, but let's talk really about the challenges they're going to see when they get into the workplace, right? It's like a mother, right? The mother wants to protect their child from things that they've seen and they don't want their child to see, right? But, nevertheless, it's going to happen. So things happen in the workplace once they, get a job or become a professor, such as unequal pay, how to negotiate their salary, right? Finding a faculty member that could be their mentor as a research mentor or as a teaching mentor. So I want to know from each of you, if I may, what what challenges do you see that they should be prepared for when they enter the workforce, right? So things that we want to protect them from, but it's just going to happen anyway. What type of things should we let them know about that they need to prepare for?
Well, I'll start with that. So two things come to mind. The first is the availability of resources that are not, as you say, on the books, okay? So in a department, in any organization, industry, there are always discretionary resources. And there's a great book, I can't remember the author right now, but it's called Women Don't Ask. And a part of that is asking for those discretionary resources and having access to the networks for those. So just because there is no money in the formal budget, there may be some other resources. So that is one challenge that I would recommend that we arm our young women with. The other challenge is access. It's also a resource. Is access to lab space. There was a study about 20 years ago at MIT. You probably saw the movie, and they went around to measure the lab space for the male faculty versus the women faculty. And you know the story. The women's faculty had a closet where the male faculty had lavish lab space. So there's also be careful about the unequal allocation of space. Space is huge. It's very important, particularly it's in any organization. So budget, monetary resources, and space. Those are things that can get away from you, and you may not realize the inequity there if you're not sensitive to that.
Those are all wonderful, great points. I want to add is that don't be afraid to fail. I think we reached at a point where you're successful, right? So you're successful at your study, you went further, and you're successful at a higher graduate degree. You got that, everything is great, and then you start your own career, and you probably will get a lot of rejections. And rejections are not necessarily means that you're failing, right? Don't get beat up on that, because life moves on. And I think oftentimes women in particular are very reserved, right? So we're always, try our best. We want to be our best. We want to hear compliments. But you're at a point where you're competing with majority men, and they're competing with you. They're not gonna give you compliments all the time, and your proposals will get rejected like everybody else. So I think to face that and to pick it up and then move on is a very important skill to have. And I think for sure there are external factors, like what Sonya had already mentioned, that can create a lot of anxiety above everything else. And I think, we certainly need to work on many things still. Just be prepared when things doesn't go your way. It's okay, and you'll get more resilient as a result.
I agree with everything that was said. I would like to add one thing, and that's in believe in yourself and your capabilities, and know that you deserve to be there as much as your other colleagues, and however they are identifying themselves. Everybody who's there, they went through a process that it's robust in most of the institute, and you should never doubt yourself and your capabilities. And then also those unequal treatments, they are everywhere, and the academy is not immune. Hopefully one day it will be resolved as part of the culture change. But I think that if you see unequal treatment, not only for yourself, for others, just be brave and speak up. I think that we need to change it by just being true to ourselves and then fighting for our own rights and the others.
Thank you, Panya. So we're going to wrap up. I want to thank Dr. Smith for taking time to talk to us, to have this conversation via live stream. And it was a sincere pleasure to have you with us this evening.
Thank you. My pleasure indeed.
So this has been a great conversation. Although I know that we have only skimmed the surface of a larger conversation and an action plan that may be taking place in the academy and the workforce. However, I hope that you've gained a different perspective about diversity in STEM research and education and its impact on the participation of women in the workforce and in an academy. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Pamela Clark, Senior Director of Research Development in the Office of Research, and Senior Vice President for Research, Dr. Bruce Jones, for once again highlighting the extraordinary research activities that take place at Howard University, a historically Black college and university. Remember, you can find the 2024 Howard University Research Month at researchmonth.howard.edu. And for our live audience, please sit tight as we will go off air for about a 5-minute Q&A session, and we'll take about 2 or 3 questions depending on the time. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed our conversation. You can follow us on Facebook and listen to our latest episodes on iTunes, Spotify, or Amazon Music. We'd like to thank our sponsor, the School of Engineering at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, for sponsoring this episode. If you're interested in being a sponsor, then please contact us at sponsor@thisacademiclife.org. Join us next time for the good, the bad, and the ugly of this academic life.